I find it funny in these political discussions that I've done, the two groups of people who were most adamant that violent revolution worked were the libertarian conservatives and the communists. The two parties that could not be further in agreement with each other. Maybe we can get them all together and let them both fight each other and see who wins instead of having one side get militant and taking over, causing the other side to start a counter-revolution leading to war. I prefer the free speech area where ideas can be discussed rationally instead of deciding it on the emotional heat of battle. BionicDance tagged me with a political views test. I rated left-leaning libertarians, small l, along with Gandhi and the Dalai Lama. I feel like the government is needed to help the poor and protect the working class from the rich elites from exploiting them, and it could work if we didn't waste money on wars and overseas interventionism. We are very big on protecting our nation from real or non-real threats foreign, but we let the domestic ones run rampant all over us. I also believe that people should have the right to do whatever they want with their bodies if they feel like it, so long as they are given the facts about what they are doing and are not given misinformation by companies and the media. As you folks know, I was a big Ron Paul supporter, and he was the only one I trusted who was capable and had a plan to safely transfer us from a social democracy to a libertarian form of government. I see types of government as operating systems. They have their advantages and their limitations, but when changing from one to another, you need a tech geek to do the transition without ending in disaster. The Republicans seem to just want to run libertarian programs on a social democratic operating system, or at worst, just try and break it. They double the debt anytime they come in, and then they blame the Democrats for raising the debt a little more by comparison to stabilize the deficit. They also have no problem taking from taxpayers for projects they consider to be public good. Republicans have this idealistic, non-existent past that had zero regulation and everyone was prosperous. Low regulation occurred when the West was wild and life was not complicated. Then the Industrial Revolution came and everyone became exploited labor by the large companies and robber barons. America became the top of the world when the government stepped in and allowed unions freedom and enforced regulations like health and the environment. America and many of its people are still recovering from the rampant pollution that was dumped with low regulation. To be honest, libertarians, I hate to say this, but I'm losing faith in Ron Paul. He seems self-defeating. He thinks companies should be able to spend as much money as they want on campaigns, as that is free speech, and then expects to get elected. Corporations don't want fairness. They want money, and if they can shout down opposition and use manipulation, lies, and spin, then freedom of speech isn't free. It costs commercial airtime. Also, the free market needs regulation. If not, then companies that pump out pollutions, which are infringing on health and property of others, who don't care about human rights and will exploit the working person, will have a major advantage and no competition over someone who wants to follow a more humanitarian business model. The small business with a conscience will be put out of business. If Walmart has taught us anything, cheap trumps responsibility to our planet and fellow man. This is why slavery took so long to be eliminated. Now, for those of you who want a libertarian solution and think that the government should not deal with social services, there is one thing I must say to you. If there wasn't a problem with poverty, then the government wouldn't feel the need to address it. Unless you believe the New World Order is trying to take over, and then you're batshit insane. Penn Jillette is a staunch libertarian, and he claims that if the government didn't help people, then the rest of us would, as we have more money not being taxed. My response to this is, are you serious? You're an illusionist. You know how easily people are tricked, and how they think. And you think that if the government went away, people would just magically start helping one another? I'm sorry, but I can't see it. The government doesn't step in and try to fix something unless there's a problem. They may do it wrong, but if the good people that Penn and the libertarians claim will fix things had taken care of it, then the government wouldn't have had to bother with it in the first place. They say that charities would take care of things. But do you know what charities spend a decent percentage on? Advertising to get donations. That's right, depending on the organization, some of the money you give them is not directly going to anyone, but it is going to ask someone else to give. This is not a knock to charities at all, but they have to pull teeth just to get donations. Imagine how they would be if they were to replace the government. Yes, their donations would go up overall, but they would still be barely getting by with all the help needed. So what can you do if you want to get rid of government intervention? You have to step up and get your hands dirty and show that you really don't need government's help. I know going to tea parties and protests gets you good and fired up, but the real work that causes real change tends to be slow and boring. About 2 years ago, I sat down and designed a system to do just that. I called it the Liberty Constitution, as I was in the thick of the Ron Paul campaign. I saw that he wasn't going to win, but I also believed that we didn't need to do so if we could create a grassroots-style local government, local communism, and global capitalism. This was the motto I used for it. It involves a group of about 50 people because groups bigger than that have problems with democracy as us versus them begins to take effect easier. These 50 people form a local government or social union. They elect a representative who meets with other representatives, and they elect representatives for themselves, and so on. The great thing is that this Constitution would require no alteration of the American Constitution at all, and anyone could start one in any country if they had enough people, a lawyer, and an accountant. You could make it as libertarian, socialist, or religious as you like. You could provide group health insurance, a small school, local road repair, charity, and neighborhood watch. The group could also take in needy people to help them pull themselves up from poverty if possible. The social union would tax you, but you would know exactly where it was all going, and you could complain very easily if you thought it was being wasted or used inefficiently. As the representative tiers went up, each one of them would cover larger issues, and the people would have better access to the representatives. Over time, I envisioned a social union to be like a cell phone carrier that you could have a contract with for a few years, then switch if your views or beliefs changed. People who don't want any of it could ignore it and figure out their own way to deal with things. I've posted this link in the sidebar. I had the full Constitution, as well as a well-written document explaining my reasoning posted for a while. The email address is a dummy account I haven't checked in months. I thought it was so groundbreaking that the New World Order would surely hunt me down if I made the ideas available to the public with my name on it. Go paranoia! Anyway, guys, look at it, tear it apart. I'm sure it's missing ideas. It may be too capitalistic for some, or too commie for others, but either way, it's something that requires working together with people in a group and getting off your ass and doing something besides freaking out about the government and living in paralyzing fear. Enjoy it. It's an interesting idea nonetheless.